Hello again and welcome back, all my favorite coder cats and coder kittens. As usual, this is Becca going by Nightcats Meow most places online, and I am back as your coder kitty to talk to you once again about Linden Scripting Language. Now, I actually spent quite a bit of time trying to decide what I was going to cover this week, and I got a relatively good response to last week's video about a natural look for a spark effect, and I've been actually getting involved in a roleplay sim again recently and was touching up an avatar and was working on a little project for that I thought some of y'all might be interested in. This is another case of not of taking things that I've mostly already described, ways of adjusting positioning and the alpha visibility of an object, but in this case combining it with timing in order to achieve a far greater effect than anything on its own will. So I'm going to take just a minute here, switch avatars, and I'm going to show you a nice little trick with putting on sunglasses in a more realistic way than you've probably ever seen in Second Life. Okay, welcome back. Now, despite all appearances, I assure you that this is still the same coder kitty you know and love under the hood, or clothes, or whatever. So, pop that up there. So you see, a nice set of sunglasses. Not all that unusual. Now, I said probably more detailed for this than you've seen in Second Life. Some of you may have seen this detailed. Some of you may literally not care. But if you watch closely, the actually taking them off into the hand. There are certain things to making things look and behave realistically in Second Life, which you saw right there with that. That is the same basic system of... I've actually got a few things under control. Whoops. Get around that. I believe I've shown you systems like this before. In fact, I showed it to you when I was showing you the sparks. I used the same system of tagging every one of the parts with an LP for linked part and a number. I then have very simple code that scans, the description of everything in the object, and if it finds an LP in the description, it spits out integer, LP, whatever it is, and whatever link number it's looking at the time. That way I can just simply refresh those if I add or remove any piece here, and everything still works. Here, this is very similar to what you saw in the Sparks video. It's the prim color, all sides, with a color, and an X. In this case, whereas before I would have this pre-programmed in. It gives would automatically be 1, and then I also had the glow and the in there as well. This controlling the color being the way to control alpha with set link primitive parameters fast. What makes this particular function different is I made a single function for alpha with integer x, float y, and float a. We'll get into what y and a are in a minute, but x, you see for all of these, it's the same thing. That is simply because when this runs, it's going to turn every piece either all the way invisible or all the way visible. There are only two exceptions, and those are the lenses, which is why you have a separate bit down here that details specific link number, whereas these all have all sides. This specifies side 0, since only that part is going to be given any amount of transparency, which is why it gets a separate option here, a separate alpha value, so that I can set those differently. And then how much of a glow value, because that combined with the settings on the specular mapping, the shininess, help give you a really nice, very anime, flourishing look. If light catches it just right, these become just opaque reflect. There you go. When the light catches it right, you get that very anime, opaque reflection look. And I'm very fond of that look. Some people may hate it. I'm fond of it. So I set her glasses up to do that naturally. So that's why those are different. But putting this in one function, one of the things that when I actually went to classes for this, when I got my degree in software engineering, one of the things they emphasized endlessly was code reusability, where the same function can be reused for different tasks, and simplification. The less code you have to write, the better, because it is easier to understand, easier to debug, and chews up less memory. In order to make that work, when the glasses go on, it sends a message, glasses on or glasses off. That is how the animation in the hand with its pair of glasses is triggered. It flips a toggle so that I only have to click the same spot and it will go on or off. It starts an animation that I pulled out of a cell phone in order to get that effect. I can't share it with you because I pulled it from another source. It's not transferable. I wouldn't have permission, the rights to do so, even if it was. And then it waits for a certain period of time. That was as I slowly worked out the time it takes for the animation to get up there. And I worked that out to 5.2 seconds. So I set that there. And then it runs the alpha function I created with 0. If for off, it's 0, 0, and 0. So that would mean that it's just like the arguments up here. Integer x, 0. Float y, 0. Float a, 0. So that means every one of these, the amount of alpha goes to 0. Amount of alpha, 0. Amount of glow, 0. If you have something that's completely transparent but has some glow on, you'll see kind of an outline of the glow. So you want to make sure that goes to 0 as well. Whereas down here, it goes to 1 to turn the basic alpha of everything to 1. 0.9, so the lenses are slightly transparent, and 0.1, so that those slightly transparent lenses are slightly glowy to get that very anime effect. And in each case, this stops the animation. Which it's been a while since I've talked about animations, so I will briefly review request permissions, then the key you want to get the permissions from. In this case, only I need it, so get owners is good enough. And then what permission I need. Permission, trigger, animation. This line right here tells Second Life that this object is allowed to control my animations. Otherwise, this part would not work correctly. And all the glasses off and glasses on do is run a function exactly like this that is timed to work with the animation as well. Now, if I wanted to give it a little bit more wiggle room, I could set it so that it keeps the hand up there for a minute, allow a little bit of room for delay. But if you want the most detailed you can get, the most realistic, remember, just like with programming, Second Life exists inside a computer. No matter how realistic it looks, it's all inside a computer, so nothing happens entirely naturally. Somewhere along the chain, some piece of software has to tell the system to do anything it's going to do. It will not do anything on its own. For most cases, if you want to be able to take your sunglasses on and off, just having the sunglasses go visible or not is good enough. But if you're like me and you obsess over detail, the ability to put them on that way, well, it just it makes me happy. And hopefully that bit of a demonstration of how to go about setting it up and how to use some of the things we've already talked about. There's nothing in, I didn't spend a lot of time going over the specific commands because we've gone over them several times. Set link primitive parameters fast. You look that up on the wiki, you look up which parameters you want to work with, be it the glow, the size, the rotation, what have you, all of them are there. You create a function, a program, or a function, or even just a single line of code that will tell you those, like I did here. Alpha writer LP marker. This is a very simple script. It's currently set to not running, so it won't show up any extra active memory. All it does is it starts a for loop, which goes integer I. Then an integer count is get object prim count get key. The thing with this is it has to be resed out in the world. If it's attached to me, that part is not going to work. It has to be resed out independently in the world. But this will count how many individual pieces there are. Whether they're a mesh piece, a sculpt, on a classic prim, what have you, every individual piece attached to it gets counted here. Then I create the for loop. For, we start with I equals 0, semicolon. I is less than count, which we determined up here, semicolon. I equals I plus 1. After that, it proceeds to search each individual piece, because what it does is it creates a string message, is get link primitive parameters, I. We're starting at 0, we're going through the entire scope of the object, get each link number, and tell me which color it is. This only works with all sides if the object is one uniform color. If it has to have different colors on different faces, then this gets a little more complicated, but I didn't need that here, so I was able to get away with just all sides. It then has the color is get substring, starting with message. So this right here, it's going to look at that, and it's going to say from the beginning until substring index message looking for a closing bracket. What that means is substring index, remember that everything is treated like a list of items in there. In a string, if you're going to look through for a specific spot in that string, which is a line of text, the first character is 0, the second character is 1, all the way through to the end. Substring index tells you the first time the thing that you're looking for shows up. In this case, a closing bracket. This is important because we're going to show you why real quick. Owner say. And we're going to assign this just a random link number 7. All right. Because this is what comes out for each entry under message, is you get something like this. You get a vector, which is the RGB value for a color, red, green, blue. And you can think of these, since if you've done stuff on the web, you're used to a hexadecimal system. 0 through 9, and then A, B, C, D, E, F. You can think of it in Second Life more like a percentage. 100%. So 100% red, 100% green, 100% blue. Max out of everything is white. Simple. And then it gives you this. That is just like if you are plugging it into set link primitive parameters, that would be telling you how much transparency, what the alpha is. But we're not going to need that when we're building this other code. So we don't need this in that spot, I should say, when we're constructing the code. So what we're looking for is where that is, that closing bracket. So the get substring starts at 0 right here and keeps going until it finds that closing bracket. That becomes the substring color. Then string description. Get link primitive parameters for whichever link number we're on. Get prim description. Remember I told you the way I set this up is it winds up with a link prim, with an ID code for link prim put in there. And then it outputs set link primitive parameters fast, description. Now remember, since we need to turn this into output, this whole thing is in quotation marks with a /n. So it will print out set link primitive parameters fast, opening parentheses, quotation mark, because that ends this block of text. As far as this is concerned, this is just a string, a block of text, so it needs to be closed with a quotation mark. Then plus, to add something else to it, description, which we pulled right here, which is the description for that specific link number. Plus, we're adding more to the string, another quotation mark, comma, bracket, prim color, all sides, close out the string again with another quotation mark, plus color, which we defined here, breaking that out of the wider get link primitive parameters, plus appending more onto it, quotation mark, comma, x, closing bracket, closing parentheses, semicolon. This quotation mark closes the string, another parentheses, another semicolon. So, to demonstrate that whole thing again, what you wind up getting printed out is it gives you, as normal for anything from Second Life that gives you a message, it has a timestamp and what the object was. That \n is a line break, so that everything else comes out in the next line. Set link primitive parameters fast for LP15, set the prim color on all sides to white, and where the alpha would go is X. That literally wrote the code that goes into that function I showed you. That is how I made all of those. I simply wrote a little program that gathered the information I wanted and then wrote the lines of code for me. So it'd basically be, by dropping it down a line, I can just simply go through, pick the line that has the where it came from, delete it. Down another, pick the line that said where it came from, delete it, leaving just the actual code. So that actually is 2 lessons for you. One is an example of how to make an object look just that extra bit more realistic. In this case, the ability to take your sunglasses on or off and actually have it be seen. They don't just magically appear, but you take them out of your pocket and then you put them on. That's just a matter of combining the code I just showed you with timing. Work out the timing with your animation. Play around with it. You'll nail it down, and you'll have an effect that just looks completely natural that some people may not pay any attention to because it looks completely natural. People don't always, I've learned from doing hyper realistic things like that. Well, I guess not hyper realistic, more realistic things like that people don't always notice them. Not consciously. They just wind up feeling that it adds something to whatever they're looking at, and they can't always put their finger on what, because it just seems somehow more realistic. And I've also shown you a way to gather information to make control code like that much more simply. The other reason, by the way, that we do it that way, you could just use set link alpha link set 1 all sides. Or if you need to do them individually, set the individual link numbers. There are two reasons not to do that. One, if you're ever dealing with more than one part, and some parts show and some parts don't. Take, for example, that headband and that hair are all part of the same link set here. I do that specifically because appearance, edit outfit. I have a limited number of attachment points. And when I put on all the roleplay tools for this character, that gets down to like 2 or 3 attachment points left. So they're kind of at a premium. So doing that helps me cut down on how many attachment points I'm using. It also, using the set link alpha, if you have ever seen somebody pull out a complex object and it seems like parts of it don't appear or they put it away and parts of it stay behind, set link alpha has a tendency to do that. Set link primitive parameters fast is less likely to leave those parts waiting. It also runs faster, so you're less likely to see the parts flickering out one by one unless you're dealing with a lot of stuff. So, there you have it. The method behind the madness, and another look at how to bring that extra bit of realism into your Second Life builds by using a combination of code, animation, and planning. This has been Coder Kitty's workshop. Been glad to have you all around for this. Remember that new episodes of the workshop post on Tuesdays at noon SL Eastern Standard Time, and that my other series, Coder Kitty Decodes LSL, those episodes drop Wednesday by noon Eastern Standard Time. So I guess that'll be it for now. Please do like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any specific requests, go ahead and drop them in comments on the videos or on my Discord. Links for the Discord will be in the description. Links for playlists to both this series and Decoded will be in the description. So I guess that'll be it for now. So until next time, good day, good luck, happy coding. Meow meow.